Chapter 5. Chapter 5 of Cybess. What lurks above. So that's how you tell the difference between tea berries, which you can eat, and they make tea berry chewing gum from those, and the berries you can't eat. Cy couldn't believe they had been eating stuff right from the woods. Who knew? Well, this has been a most informational walk, Miss Tour Guide Bess. He jabbed at her a little. So that's how you survived growing up on the mountain. What, when your mother was in one of her psycho screaming moods, you just ate in the woods, or what? She laughed. Well, you know, a girl's got to do what a girl's got to do. Of course she never ate in the woods. It was nice to know these things about our wonderful habitat, though. She feared the world would soon forget how lush their habitat truly is, and of the natural wonders that it holds, what with technology taking off like it has. I don't mean to stop the party, DeMonte claimed, but don't you think we should move a bit faster than we have been? I mean, rural route has its beauteous things, but I can barely see the last of the sun, and do we know how far we have to go yet? Cy, of course, had been thinking the same thing, but avoided saying anything so DeMonte wouldn't pick on him. At DeMonte's bringing it up, Cy took his one shot. Oh, who's afraid of the big bad wolf now, DeMonte? Hey, I ain't afraid of nothing, DeMonte shot back. Alora was looking at the small map and then at Cy with a perplexed look. Cy noticed, that's your perplexed look, Bess. I don't like your perplexed look. Put confident look back on, please. She handed Cy the map. They had passed some of the landmarks, but there were 2 left ahead. She had been crossing them off as they passed each one. 2 landmarks left, and the sun was almost set. Let's speed it up, guys. Cy's tone turned serious very quickly. We don't want to find out what lurks overhead, what that line was about in the first note. Speaking of, Bess, what do you think it meant? Land you own? I've been thinking about that on and off as well. If it's to be found yet, then how does one own it? And if these messages really are for me, I'm pretty sure I don't own any land. I'm still working on that one. Let's be working on some foot hustling now, huh? DeMonte said. Uh-huh. Cy was loving this as he shot DeMonte an all-knowing look, and DeMonte gave him the "you might have been right" face. Well, Bess, Cy was planning out loud, how long did it take us between each of the first 5 landmarks, and we can figure out how long it should take us to get to those coordinates. Well, we'll be moving a little bit faster than before. Sorry, I just couldn't help sharing. I've been in my element since coming up here to the city, Cy. It was nice to share some of the stuff dear to my heart. He smiled at her. He also did not want to tell her he had been pelted with 3 pebbles since they'd been talking. He finally got a break in conversation to turn to DeMonte, who gave him hell for pelting him with pebbles, only to see DeMonte twitching, or to give DeMonte hell for pelting him with pebbles, only to see DeMonte twitching at them being pelted at him too. Bess must be too far from where they are being thrown, Cy thought, or hoped. Let's not startle her, Cy whispered to DeMonte as they looked around for where these pebbles were coming from. A frozen look came over DeMonte's face. Keep walking. Keep walking. DeMonte said softly out of the side of his mouth to Cy, who now laid eyes on it, she, he, fur, hair, rather, lots of hair. Very, very, very tall. Yes, keep walking, Cy agreed. I am, stated Alora, not knowing of Cy and DeMonte's secret exchange. What is that rank odor? Did one of you cut one? We shouldn't have eaten that jerky I brought, I guess. Whew, that is rank. Cy looked at DeMonte. I'm not saying a thing. What hairy dude? I didn't see it. Nope. I'm not saying anything either then. Cy turned back to Alora. Bess, let's walk on the other side of the road. The forest on this side ends just up here anyway, but, well, it's night now and I'd feel safer with you over there. Sometimes she thought Cy was more controlling about women than anything. He seemed so nice, but just always so... She didn't know the right word. She just knew how she felt about his attitude sometimes. She moved over regardless. Cy and DeMonte were no longer being pelted with pebbles, and one of them nodded quickly back at the direction of the forest, as if to say, thanks for stopping the pebbles and not killing us. They were especially grateful that it quit and left, considering the sun had fully set now. It was dark. Oh, look, belted Alora. Is that the big red barn out in the field up there? At least it might be red, if we could see the color from here. That's one landmark down, if that's it. When we get to it, then there's just one more, and we'll be in that town on the map here. A gust of wind out of nowhere made their hair blow. I read nothing about rain or wind when I checked the weather before we left. Cy was picking up his pace. He didn't really want to be out in the dark. Another big gust of wind out of nowhere blew their hair. Who has the flashlight? Cy said in a loud, tense tone. They were all nearing the spot on the road that the barn sat back from. Here, I got it, said DeMonte. Point it towards the barn so we can see if it's red, Alora asked, or rather demanded. She didn't realize how ruler-like she could be, but Cy knew all too well. He had picked it up from her to keep her in check, though she didn't notice. She looked at him sometimes like he was being overbearing or something, and not the case. He was trying to keep up. DeMonte got the flashlight on and pointed it towards the field to their left. Where's the barn? Oh, there. He dropped the flashlight. Dude. Cy shot back over his shoulder at him. DeMonte was picking it back up. Cy, DeMonte whispered. Cy paid attention and fell back a little so she wouldn't hear. That was the biggest, hugest bat on that barn I have ever seen in my life. Alora turned toward them to see what was going on. Perfect timing for Cy to take the flashlight and look behind her to see the barn himself. There, perched on top of that barn out in the field, was the hugest, bat-like thing anyone has ever seen, with claws. It had its head down. Alora tried to see if Cy had found the barn or not. Oh, good, it's the red one, she exclaimed. Then she saw it. And she heard it. It raised its grotesque, ugly, demon-like head slowly, with a mouth full of still dripping dinner. DeMonte said, disgusted, Is that a cow? Is that thing eating a cow up there on the roof? I'm shutting this off so it doesn't see us. Cy said, hurried. Run. We should probably run. He grabbed Alora's hand to make sure where she was. She grabbed DeMonte's. Technically, shouldn't we lay down and play dead so it doesn't hear us? Alora said, huffing. That's for bears and shit, DeMonte replied. I want to get as far away from that as possible. Do you remember what the last landmark is, Bess? A turn, wide, what looked like a U-shaped turn in the road was the next one. The coordinates are right after that, and we can't check this GPS thing right now. A larger gust of wind blew hard. What is it with this crazy-ass wind? DeMonte yelled while running. It sure got quiet. We did run away from it. Is it safe? Alora inquired. Another gust of wind. DeMonte took out his knife just in case. Cy said to him, I'll turn the light on, but only to see if it's not following us. He flicked on the flashlight as they were still running, pointed it back. Nothing back there. Good, he said. As he brought the flashlight up to light their way, they all stopped dead in their tracks. It had flown up ahead of them, waiting, in the dark, for them to run right to it. Alora let out a whimper. Rarely did she show signs of fear, but this was a unique occasion. No. Oh, hell no. DeMonte exclaimed. Okay. Cy was trying to keep his head. Okay. It's just sitting there. Maybe it can't see that well. Like bats do. It does seem to notice sounds like bats do. Dude, bats don't eat cows in a couple bites. In fact, bats don't eat cows. DeMonte was trying to come up with a plan quickly, but Cy beat him to it. We split up. Strength in numbers, dude, DeMonte reminded him. Not all the time, DeMonte. Football. He's the linebacker. We're the running backs. If we split up, you go far right, we'll go far left. I'll give you the flashlight. We'll go around it fast, super fast. There's nothing back the way we came from on the road, but more trees. The trees are its territory. It would have one up on us there. In front of us is a town with buildings we could run to. That's our territory. If I'm right, it would give up there. We would have to go forward. Cy explained his plan so fast he was hoping that they kept up with his words. Stay in the dark so it's harder to see us. Don't turn the light on unless you're in trouble, DeMonte. When I had the light on, the bend in the road was just behind it. You think that's the last landmark, Bess? Let's hope that's the one. If it is, we're almost there. Okay. The beast rustled. They all tightened up. We've been stopped too long. It might come looking. DeMonte turned to them. Do or die, friends. I truly understand that expression now, Cy. I just want to say I love you guys, and I'll meet you on the other side. 1, 2, 3. Alora counted in the whisper as they were all speaking. Go! They took off. It was a race for life. They passed the beast, and then they heard the wings. It had flown again. They reached the bend, which had the first street light of the town on its end. The monster swooped down at them, and they kept running. It had missed this time. They came together as a threesome again, running fast as lightning. Almost to the first street light, the demon swooped at all three of them again, this time catching DeMonte with one talon. No time for the flashlight, but they were back together now. Cy quickly grabbed DeMonte's leg. They both went up in the air, screaming, then jolted to a stop. Cy's backpack strap had caught on the street light. All Alora could think to do now was throw rocks at the monster's head. None seemed to reach it, though. Its head swooped around the corner to come get Cy off the streetlight. Cy was trying to reach down to it while still holding on to DeMonte. Don't let go, Cy, don't let go, DeMonte screamed. I won't. Alora had hit the monster's head with some rocks when it swooped, and they had no effect. A gunshot rang. Then a few more. The demon gave up. Cy clung to the streetlight as DeMonte fell beneath and grabbed a lower part. They shimmied down the post as quickly as possible. Alora ran over to them and hugged them both in a shaky voice. I don't think we're out of the woods just yet. There's a church right there. Let's go. They all ran to the church. On the porch stood a preacher with a gun. They were out of breath. Well, it's a good thing I remembered I had set things up for Sunday offertory service. Can't do it tomorrow. I take Saturdays off for my fishing, unless a member of my flock needs me. Are you kids okay? Alora hugged the man. She knew he had helped save them. DeMonte then did the same thing. You saved my life. You saved our lives, Cy asked hurriedly. What was that thing? Well, you three are some of very few who survived an encounter with the Jersey Devil. Jersey has its own devil? That makes sense. DeMonte was trying to be funny, but he was still shaken. Only in the rural areas. A lot think it's folklore, unless you live here. No one travels here at night. You must be from out of town, the preacher chuckled. At that last statement, they responded with blinking eyes. Well, kids, the preacher put his hands on both the young men's shoulders. You came to the right place to defeat the devil. He paused for emphasis. You can come inside if you like. I have a few things to finish up, and I can take you to a nice hotel down the road. We will, if it comes back, but I need to catch my breath. Can we sit here? Sure, he said, and he lowered his voice and his head. If the devil comes back, just come inside. At that, he broadly smiled and went in the church to finish his work. They all sat down on the porch and let out big sighs, trying to calm down after their encounter. I am so looking up this so-called folklore if I ever get back to my dorm, Cy stated. You keep saying if we make it back, Cy, Alora proclaimed as she took the message out of her pocket. According to the map, there should be a boulder here somewhere. Look, the first key is in the boulder's lair. I remember that part, said DeMonte, getting back to his old self after his near-death experience. The only boulder I see is that one the church sign is built on top of, Cy observed. Let's not stray too far from the porch, guys. If that's not it, we can look for boulders in the light of day, DeMonte proclaimed. No way was he going back out in the creepy night. They walked down to the boulder the church sign was built on. Lair, Alora was thinking. There's a hole near the bottom of it. A lair is like a cave, so a boulder's lair would be a deep indention like a small cave. You still got the flashlight? Cy asked DeMonte. DeMonte handed it to him. Didn't have time to use it. Thanks for being there, bro. No problem, Cy replied with a pat on DeMonte's back. Cy went to shine the flashlight in the hole as they all knelt down. Hiss! A green garter snake came out, shooting at Cy's face. He backed away in time. Alora grabbed a forked stick and gently scooped the animal up, tossing it far away. It's a garter snake. They're non-venomous. You scared it. They won't hurt you. Unless you stick your face in its home, DeMonte said sarcastically. Man, girl, I've never been so glad to know a lady who grew up in the mountains. Although your choice of hiking trips has me a little wary, I gotta say. She smiled. Cy knelt down to look in the hole again. He cleared it out with a stick to be sure. Reach in there and see if there's a key. Alora was excited again. You reach in there. Your hands are small enough to fit anyway. I've had my fill of danger for this evening. She reached inside the hole and felt around, trying to figure it out. Yelped! At this, both men looked at her in horror. She was smiling, though. There's a rock in there that moves. Maybe if we press it. No. Oh, it come loose. Come on. She was working it with her fingers. They heard a click. She pulled out a carved stone. It had half a crest at the top with what looked like half a ship sailing on water. In the center of the elongated part was a twist and a turn of what looked like half boxes alternating one another. The preacher came out of the church and walked down the porch stairs towards them. Alora quickly took a hand towel out of her backpack, wrapped the key in it, and shoved deep down in her backpack and zipped it back up. What are you kids doing? The preacher chuckled. Cy explained, Oh, well, we're just admiring this old rock. We like geology. Alora shot Cy a disapproving look for half lying to a preacher. He's a preacher. Don't lie. The first part would have been just fine, she scolded under her breath. That rock has been in this town for centuries. I thought such an artifact would be a good solid foundation for this church to start on. It's one of the first things I put here. I'll tell you its history on the way to the hotel. Come on. They all piled in the preacher's white truck. On the way to the hotel, he told them how the boulder was one of the oldest things in this town. It was so heavy that no one in history had moved it until the town built a courthouse. They tried to extract it from its spot, and it wouldn't budge. A church opened later on near its location. They built the children's play area around it outside. When the church building aged, past repair, they had built a new one. A construction company wanted to break down the boulder for building rock, and it wouldn't budge. Later on, when the church sign got ruined in a storm, the elderly preacher had members go get the boulder to anchor their new sign. Then it moved without a problem. It stayed there for decades. When I came to town, that church building was in need of renovation. The old preacher had passed on, and the new preacher there now asked if I wanted it as a welcome gift to the town. He wanted one of those fancy new signs to go with his renovated building. He hadn't been able to move it, but we moved it over here without one problem. He told me the story of how that boulder just wouldn't budge if the wrong person tries to move it. So I took that as a sign that God had blessed that boulder for one reason or another. My church is flourishing, so it must be. Here you go. Now, if you kids need anything at all, you know where to find me. You got that? You should come to service on Sunday. I have a great sermon lined up. Thank you for everything. Jeremiah McConnell. And you are? I'm Cy. This is Bess. Alora, she corrected as she shook Saul's hand. He calls me Bess because my middle name is Elizabeth, and it was my grandmother's. She was Ruth Elizabeth. Alora knew she was rambling, but the evening had left her nervous and excited at the same time. Ah, good name, Saul replied, and this is DeMonte. DeMonte answered for Cy. We truly appreciate everything, and thank you for inviting us, but we're headed hopefully out of this town come morning. Well, just remember daylight. Stay away from that devil. You know where to go to get away from him. Yes, sir. They all agreed as they went to check into the hotel. They put their backpacks down and stood at the check-in desk when Larry's henchman had been waiting in the lobby. Alora had set hers on a chair next to the desk. He quietly got up and slid the puzzle box in the front pocket of her backpack while she was talking to the hotel clerk and calmly walked to his room. It would have been too obvious if he looked through it for the first part of the key now. Boy, he'd like to have a piece of that. Boss said to let her find the other part of the key and then get them, so he'd have to wait. A masterpiece again, Lorenzo exclaimed to himself as he held up the finished last puzzle box. Time to insert the message. He had never bothered reading them. Maybe he should. He took a look and cocked his head and thought a minute, shrugged his shoulders, and put it safely in the puzzle box. Surrounding him on either side of his feet were wood shavings, paper, and tools. He looked around the well-used corner of his apartment, which was now his work area. He was too tired to clean it up now. Maybe a nap before he had to go give this to his uncle, Larry Skies. He set the alarm on his phone, put it on silent, and went to bed. It's 2:00 in the morning. What are you calling me for? Larry grumbled on the phone. He still hasn't shown up. What the? All right. I'll call him after I get off the phone with you. Get some rest. You don't want to miss those 3 leaving in the morning. Follow them. I'll get my lazy bum nephew up to meet you when you tell me where you're at tomorrow. Gah, Larry tried to call Lorenzo's phone with no answer. He tried again, this time leaving a wretched and angry message. How was he supposed to get back to sleep now? Lorenzo woke in the morning feeling like he'd never slept before that night. He had pulled an all-nighter the night before and went to work, came home, and got right back to the puzzle box. He got up to make coffee, stepped to the bathroom, came out, poured coffee. He set the coffee down hard on the table when he realized he was supposed to deliver that puzzle box last night. Why didn't his alarm go off? Panic struck as he raced to find his phone on the work desk. It went off. He must have slept through it. 1 voicemail and 2 missed calls from Larry. Shit! He listened anyway. He listened anyway just to make sure he wasn't in any danger or physical harm. No one knew what Uncle Larry was capable of, and he sure didn't want to find out. He listened to the message, pulling his ear away sometimes through all the yelling. Okay, he could still meet them when he gets the next call from his uncle. He turned the sound back up on his phone. He'd better get ready. Bah! He had tossed the phone on the bed. He couldn't wait until he didn't need this side job anymore from his uncle to make ends meet. God, he wished he could just find that hazel-eyed girl and get someplace where people didn't yell at him or put him down or try to manipulate him. I mean, damn it. It's not like he was a pushover. He stood up all the time on his own 2 feet. A life with someone like her in a happier place would be the best thing. Ah, who am I kidding? He said out loud. He knew full well his uncle would keep tabs on him no matter where he went. Damn it, he exclaimed out loud once more as he gathered his clothes from the closet and the dresser. Alora was fiddling with this new puzzle box while the boys were getting ready. She had woken up an hour before them, she hadn't been carried up in the air by a creature either. She assumed they'd had to sleep that one off. Sorry, I'm getting a bit tired. She assumed they'd had to sleep that one off from being carried up in the air. That's why she chose to sleep on the rollaway bed. Even though they argued with her that she was a lady and she should have one of the beds. Yes, in most cases, but this was a unique case. This new puzzle box was completely different. Long, cylindrical, with raised bumps on it, with what looked like 2 loops on either end. One of the tops turned and clicked, but nothing happened. So she was trying to remember the book she read concerning different types of hidden message containers from history. The only thing this reminded her of was a skytle. But there were no parchment paper or paper wrapped around it. She used the hotel pencil and notepad. If she rubbed graphite from the pencil on the raised backward digits and letters, she had quickly deduced what they were. Maybe if she rolled it on the paper, it would tell her something. It was a bit too difficult with such a fine-point pencil. It took her a few minutes to cover all the raised parts. She rolled it on the note paper, hoping to see a new message. Instead, what she saw was a combination which showed on the paper in a diagonal descending order. A, 5R, B, 12L, C, 1R. There were no numbers on the end which turned and clicked. She inspected the end closer to find tiny hash marks around the underside of the top. How was she supposed to know where to start? She turned the top more slowly and listened. Every full turn there was a slightly louder click. This must be the starting point. Cy came in munching on the free hotel breakfast and asked her if she wanted some. She told him later and to please be quiet. She had to listen. Now she had to find the starting point again. Found it, 5 notches to the right and then 12 notches to the left, 1 notch to the right. The top opened to reveal a note inside the cylinder. "Well done, Bess," Cy congratulated. "So where was this one? Under your pillow? Magically appear there while you went to find food last night? Too bad the Italian restaurant next door had already closed. I know that's your favorite." "It was in the front pocket of my backpack. I had left it unzipped after getting you the flashlight. Whoever is delivering these must have snuck it in there while I left it unattended." Cy didn't like that. "And this doesn't creep you out at all? If whoever it is wanted to harm us, they wouldn't have warned us not to travel at night or told us to camp there. Obviously, they don't want us in any danger," she snapped back. Cy gave her the "I'm sorry" look and then said, "This is different." Picking up the cylinder and inspecting it, Alora excitedly shared, "Yes, this is the only thing it reminded me of was a skytle. Or skytail. I think it's skytle. In history, it was a cylinder-like with parchment wrapped around it in which had letters that would line up to a message that only the holder of the proper size and shape block or cylinder with flat sides could read it once they wrapped the parchment around it. This one had raised letters and digits sporadically carved in it. She then showed how she cracked the code and opened the container. "Well, if it's a new form, it needs a name then. You should name it. You might have been the first one to ever unlock one." Cy was trying to get her to take credit for her incredible mind. She was always so laid back and modest about it. "Well," Alora thought for a moment, "the clockmaker was the first one to give me one. His name was Lorenzo. I'll name it a Lorenzo lock." "The clockmaker was the first to give it to me." Always thinking of others still, Cy thought to himself. He had at first loved this quality about Bess, but over the years found a lot of times it came out being detrimental to her. "She needs to give herself more credit," he thought. "Where's DeMonte? Or should we just tell him what the new message says? I was hoping we'd all be here to read it." "Oh, he's showing off his speed cubing skills at the front desk clerk. I don't know how impressed she is, though," he said with a smile. We'll fill him in. Let's read it, Bess. She unrolled the message. You will find the second key in the keystone. The delicate structure must be preserved. Handle with care and travel swiftly. Its housing has not much time left to serve. 40.828 north. 73.8851 west. Does the hotel have a computer? Could they tell us the physical address of these coordinates? What about DeMonte's GPS? She thought. I thought he said the battery died. Does it have rechargeable batteries? Well, let's go find out while we save the front desk clerk from DeMonte's old Speed Cube days stories. She smiled. She didn't see how he could pick on DeMonte for looking for a girlfriend when he himself appears to enjoy being the object of many's affections. Nonetheless, she was eager to get on with this adventure. When they got to DeMonte, he had surprisingly found out where they could obtain a vehicle. The front desk clerk's father owned an auto salvage where he fixed up and sold cars all the time. Her father would donate a car to a needy family through the church twice a year. When DeMonte told the clerk of their predicament and that Saul had brought them there, she called her father, who knew Saul from church, and in the end her father agreed to give them a spare car he had on his lot. After thanking them for such a blessing, Elora discovered the physical address of the coordinates, the Bronx. And that is the end of Chapter 5. Go find Chapter 6 in the other videos.